Good, thanks, and you, Andrew. Long
Good,
time no
good.
see.
You look just like Dave.
Yeah, at least I was able to change my name at the bottom of the screen this time. So the same face, same name.
Yeah, exactly. Nico de Plooy. So if you have just joined us, this is Andrew and normally Dave's coffee chat, but Dave's got the day off. And Nico is here with us today. So let's just see who is online with us. Let's just see. We do have Careen from Uber who will be joining us in a few minutes' time, or 5 minutes, but let's just see who is with us. Let me just see. Give us a second. Okay, so let me have a quick look here. Today's going to be awesome. We can see the good day investors. Thank you for joining us. Absolutely. I'm just getting this up on my side here. I want to see who is with us today
Yeah,
because
I
we
see
do have
from our
from Uber, and we're going to be talking about bonds, pre-approvals. Are you a first-time buyer? Are you second-time buyer? Are you investing? So I think first of all, tell us who you are, where you're from. You Joburg, Cape Town, Durban. Are you a first-time buyer, a first-time investor, or an experienced professional property investor? You've been investing for years. Please tell us. So Nico, how was your weekend?
Yeah, so we had a fantastic weekend, Andrew. We had 2 full days of interacting with other property investors. So we had a 2-day workshop, and that was fantastic. To just be with like-minded individuals, talking strategies, talking tax and structures, running the numbers on opportunities. That's what we love to do, and that's what we focused on this whole weekend. So yeah, it was a fantastic weekend.
Absolutely, and getting Arnold in, talking about the different funds they have, and business partners, getting Mark Berman in, talking about developments, and geez, within 15, 20 minutes, Mark Berman showed us the truth about building and developing. Who yeah would love to learn how to become a developer? Give me a show of hands. I'll say a show of hands. In the comments box here, I'd love to become a developer. When you learn the truth about what's really involved in developing, it's not for everyone, right, Nico?
100%. Yeah, I think a lot of people will go through the course and then decide not to do it, because I think as soon as you know what's involved, you actually open up your eyes, and maybe you think, maybe I should approach this a little bit more structured, right? Start somewhere and then get to that.
Exactly. Okay, cool. Look, I can see quite a few people. Curtis Williams, I want you to note his comment there for Kareem. First time buyer working towards fixing my credit record so I can go for pre-approval. We'll definitely cover that. Ladies and gents, if you have any questions for Uber home loans, whether it's can I get 100% bonds, whether it's what's happening with interest rates, whether it's how can I get pre-approved very quickly. Flisp, if you want to ask a question of Flisp, if you don't know what I'm talking about, we'll discuss Flisp because Uber are now working with Flisp, which is very exciting for a lot of first-time buyers. So Nico, yeah, I agree with you. The weekend was amazing. It was so good to get investors, guys coming from Potch. For those of you in Durban, are there any Durbanites on this call right now? If there are any Durbanites, myself, Nico, Milani, Jade's flying from P, we will be in Durbs next weekend, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so you all in here, please tag a friend in. If you know of anyone that's interested in property, tag a friend in. Let them know because this is going to be an interesting conversation. John, good to see you there from Cape Town, my man, my new host in Cape Town. Tag some friends in, let people know, and we will bring Careen on in a few minutes. But Nico, maybe while we are waiting for people to join, more people to join, let's just run through what events are happening this week because we are at the end of February and we're entering the 1st of March tomorrow. So what is happening this week and next, Nico?
Yeah, like always, Andrew, I think there's always a lot to do and a lot to get involved with. And we always encourage people to do that, right? Get involved with us and get going. You don't want to be stagnant in your property investment journey, so get with it. So if we're looking at the 2nd of March, which is a Wednesday, we have the premier event in PE, right?
Yeah, it's a networking event open to the public.
Open to the public, and I think that's exactly where you will get the coach with the red tie, Jade. Looking after you, and sharing a lot of valuable information as to what's happening in the PE environment, right, and with all of the other investors there.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're from East London, Eastern Cape, basically, and around Port Elizabeth, it's a good opportunity for you to go meet Jade and the team. I've asked my accountant to actually attend that event, Nico, to
Oh,
talk about
nice.
the accounting side as a property investor. And we'll also get our other partners into the room. So if you want to do some face-to-face networking, get some education and walk away inspired. And if you are around Eastern Cape, the event is happening on Wednesday night in PE from 6:30. The link is in the comments box. It's quite a busy week of events. So 3rd of March is a very, very special date. Everyone write this down for me. Everyone write this down. Get pen and paper. 3rd of March is, everyone write this down. 3rd of March is Andrew's birthday. I'm big 41 on Thursday. Everyone's thinking, what event is going to be? It's Andrew's birthday. And Nick, if it's okay, I'm going to be in Durban on the beach, okay, on Thursday.
I'm joining. You just don't know about it yet.
You'll be a little surprised.
That's it.
And then Friday, Nico, there's a very important live stream that none of you must miss. Hey, on what's happening at 1:00 on Friday, Nico.
So then it's a live stream event with APSA, right? And hopefully we're going to be talking about, definitely going to be talking about a lot that's been happening in the last couple of weeks as well. With from the APSA perspective, what's happening in financials, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm just going to get it up over here. So Jeff Lee and myself are going to be talking about the macroeconomic impact of the budget speech. And there's a few things. First thing, impact of changes, VAT, tax tables, etc. Expected impact on interest rates, guys. What's going to happen to interest rates this year? I'll also be asking Careen that question. And changes to the minimal value where transfer duties are charged for property sales. So we'll be talking about the impact on that. And so that's why, Nico, for all property investors, you need to know the impact on tax tables, VAT changes, interest rates. And that is at 1:00 on the 1:00 on the 4th of March. That's this Friday, obviously.
Friday,
and then what's Saturday, Nico?
Saturday, so we have a Star Trading with Lewis Crompton. So I'm not sure if everyone remember Lewis Crompton or have seen them. I know he was on one of the coffee chats a while back, wasn't he?
He was. Yeah.
So that's very interesting because I know Lewis for so many years, and we've been doing a lot with regards to trading, and investing as a second stream of income. And for a lot of people, that is their first stream of income, right? And then property being a second. And that's why that's something that you should definitely not be missing out on, because you can definitely change your life if you also concentrate on that as a stream of income.
Yeah, and I think the reason we're doing it, Nick, is also because we're all about property, right? But we do have lots of people within our network that do talk about what's the word? Leveraging and putting the eggs into other baskets. And because Lewis, because Dave knows Lewis, because Lewis is back in the country, and he's from London, we say, well, let's, for a small percentage of our audience, if they do want to get into Forex and learn how to trade, by trading the financial markets, this Saturday I think it's from 9 till 12. There is a link in the comments box if that, if that interests you, if you want to learn how to trade as a property investor and you want to diversify, absolutely fine. So geez, Nick, there's an event Wednesday night, Friday lunch, and Saturday morning, which is awesome. What are the big events next week?
So obviously we have one day off, which is Sunday, and then we got Monday. We got our next coffee chat, which you should never miss. And then also on Monday evening, we have the brokerage web event where we just go through all of the available opportunities that's currently being listed at the brokerage. For people who's interested in opportunities, remember to just register for that. They will also put the link in the chat box. And then if you are looking at some important deals, come and have a look at what we have on offer. I think there's some very exciting ones. There's a lot of them that didn't even reach our next event because they were gone before they were even advertised. So that makes it even more exciting.
Opportunity for property investors.
That's it.
Okay, cool.
Then we have
one or any other events between.
Yeah, so just the mastermind, which is taking place on Tuesday, the 8th of March. And then, we got also that's between 6 and 7 in the evening on the 8th. And on the 10th, on Thursday, there you have between 1 and 2, you have the live stream event from Airbnb.
Awesome. And that's with Robin Booth, eh?
That's correct, yes, son.
So for those investors who want to go down the Airbnb strategy, Robin Booth is doing his second live stream, basically just updating the market. What trends is Robin seeing? What technology is he now using? And what's working, what's not working for him? But I'm more excited now, Nico, about Durban. Please let me know, are there any Durbanites on this live stream right now? Myself, Nico, Alani from Joburg are flying out to Cape Town. Jade's flying out from Port Elizabeth. Friday between 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock. We're just doing some casual networking. Just rock up if you want to have a few drinks. Come see us. We'll be talking about property, but it's casual. There's no format, nothing like that on the Friday afternoon. It's just to connect with you guys out there in Durban. So if you know of any friends or colleagues or partners that want to get into property or are in property, I want to network with myself and my team between 4 and 6 on Friday afternoon. That's next week, Friday, the 11th of March. And the 12th of March is the one-day workshop. So Nick and I have just done the workshop in Joburg. It was a 2-day here in Joburg. In Durban on the 12th of March is a one-day. Mark Berman, the developer we talk about, Reginald, his business partner, who's a specialist in development finance, will be joining us on that day. So it's going to be a jam-packed day. Nick, I hope it's 8 to 6 for the Durbanites that just want to take their knowledge to the next level. So Nico, there are a lot of events happening this week and next. Just go to the Sapper website, click on events, and you'll get all the information there. But Nico, should we bring on our guest Careen from ooba?
100%. Here we go.
Awesome. Hello, Careen. How are you?
Good, thanks, and you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to participate. It's wonderful to be with you today.
Yes, absolutely, Careen. Thank you for your time. We've already got a few questions about somebody wanting to fix their credit, their credit score, and how do the pre-approvals work. But we'll cover that. I think first, Careen, maybe just introduce yourself at ooba and what you guys do.
Great, thanks, Andrew. So yes, my name is Careen McKinon, and I look after sales for the ooba home loans business. And we are an origination company, and home loans is our core business. But in essence, what we do is we facilitate the application for a home buyer or an investor with their bank. So we're able to go to all the banks on behalf of the purchaser of the property to shop around to make sure that we get the best deal for the buyer. And the best deal is not always about the rate. The best deal is often about structuring the deal that works for the buyer, whether it's an investor or your investment property or your own personal home. But then again, I also want to say that we are ooba, and we've got multiple factors that can assist the buyer. And yes, we can do the bond, we can do the home loan, but it's about the home buying journey. And that starts way in the beginning and assisting a client potentially with a deposit to save for their property in terms of having a deposit when you buy. And it's more favorable to secure a property when there is a deposit. Then also looking at pre-approving buyers. So we've got various tools that a potential home buyer or an investor can use to understand their affordability. We have an ooba bond indicator link, which is a URL link where the client can look at their own affordability and their own comfort. They can click on our links, and I think we have one of our ooba bond indicator links via Sapin. So you have access to that on the Sapin website, I think. So you can go and look and pull your credit score, understand whether you are buying ready. Once you've gone through that particular process in terms of your own assessment, and it does pull the credit report to give you an indication of the credit score, we can then get you in contact with one of our expert consultants who will verify the affordability process. And then we look at all the documentation. Then we look at the pay slips, potentially financials if the customer's self-employed. We'll look at the bank statements, and we'll give you an in-depth guide in terms of what the affordability for you as a home buyer or an investor would be. So there are various products and tools that we can assist you with. It's not just about the home loan. It really is about the journey of becoming an investor or a home buyer.
Absolutely, Careen. And let's just break that down a bit. So let's say, for example, there's somebody that applies for a home loan, but they get rejected because their credit score isn't good enough. How do you help those individuals?
So those customers we refer in terms of rehabilitation. So that's the one aspect. The other aspect is we do have some arrangements with potential financiers and business partners where if the traditional banks potentially decline the customer. There may be another lender that might consider you as a customer. It might be a slightly different structure of the deal. And that's where I'm talking about potentially installment sale as opposed to a traditional home loan mortgage. But we do have other alternatives, and we do have other lenders that we potentially could assist the buyer to secure the property.
And tell us, Careen, is it just the NetBank, Standard Bank apps you go to, or how many banks does ooba go to?
So we currently have agreements with 9 different lenders, of which the traditional banks are obviously in the mix. But then, as I mentioned, we do have a company called Sentinel Homes that does bespoke lendings, and look at the jockey and look at the affordability slightly differently to a traditional bank. We're actually in the process of talking to another lender to understand also installment sale, and they would look at another sector of the market, specifically looking at customers purchasing 1.2 million and below. We have agreements with HIP Housing. In the KZN area, we have an agreement with the Tala Bank. And then we also have an agreement with Investec, who obviously is looking at the upper end of the market. So we have a variety of products that we can look at what's the best fit for the customer.
Yeah. So,
absolutely.
So I can also just testify with regards to the whole journey that you were also talking about, Careen. And I've been sending a lot of people from Precision Realty and the brokerage your way, to also help them with the process of applying for a bond. And like you said, it's not always just about your interest rate, even though that does play a big role for everyone, but also about the loan to values. How many of the banks would you say is actually still providing 100% loan to values at the moment?
So the banks are still very aggressive in terms of the home loans business and growing their home loans books. So what we're seeing at the moment is a lot of the banks are competing for market share. So our stats, if I look at our January numbers, we had 53% of our total population was approved for 100% lending. So it's greater than 50% that's actually been approved. And that's due to the fact that the banks their appetite to lend it's just got better and better over the last couple of years. So if you go back to 2015, 16, there were no banks doing 100% lending at the time. And that has changed over time again as the markets got better and the banks have had to compete more fiercely with each other. So it's encouraging for us, and it's certainly encouraging for the property market when the banks are geared to lending.
Yeah. And I do think, just out of experience, we've seen that most of them come back at 100%. But also the banks will come back with different options, right, to even either increase your interest rate if you do make some changes to it. And they give you suggestions to be able to get to that either 100%, or they give you a better interest rate if you maybe even move over to their bank. There comes a lot of these type of, suggestions through from the bank. So that was very interesting for us to see as well. Do you see the same thing happening for companies that is formed, company to be formed, a brand new company being formed, and then they apply for bonds? They also still, because obviously the investor then stands suretyship for that, right? But we still get 100% coming through for those as well.
So we are able to assist. If it's a new company, the banks obviously want to understand the track record. But even in the company space, it is about the jockey. So it's who's the jockey at the end of the day. So who's behind the company? But there are certainly instances where we can look at those deals, 100%.
Because I think quite a few people out there, and there's a few agents as well, right, that have told me you cannot get lending through a company. And here's the thing. If you go up a brand new company and there's no track record, of course the company can't stand on its own 2 feet. So therefore, you have to get the jockey to stand surety. And yes, maybe after 2 years or 3 years and you're showing great profits and your book's up to date, the company could then look at standing on its own 2 feet. And that's a common thing here, Nico. People are always asking us about, can you still get lending through companies? The answer is yes. Careen, also what came up with myself was, so our bank was Standard Bank as an example, and I want to go get a lending through Absa Bank, through a company. All the banks have their own criteria, right? So even though we aim for 100%, the pre-criteria of that bank says that they'll only lend 90%. So if we go in at 90%, do we then motivate up to 100%? Is that how it works?
So every bank does have different criteria, Andrew. That is 100% correct. And there are some banks that won't do legal entities and companies unless you actually bank with them. So each bank has got a different set of criteria. So our consultants are obviously knowledgeable in terms of which banks are doing which lending and which customers they would look at. If the criteria said we weren't able to get 100% and we went in at 90%, the chances are we could still push it, because although there's criteria and there's an outline in terms of what the banks will do, there are circumstances where the banks will go outside of that criteria. And we have seen that, and we do continue to see that. So it might say you can only get 75% for South African living abroad. Sometimes the banks will push the boundaries depending on the jockey.
Absolutely. Ladies and gents, if you have just joined us, this is Andrew and Dave, but Andrew and Nico, today's coffee chat. And Careen from Uber, thank you for your time today. And we are just throwing loads of questions about lending, mainly residential. Can you get lending through companies? I see Craig Parker's asked a question about trusts, which we'll cover that in a minute. So please tag your friends in if they're interested in property or they're struggling to get finance. Join this coffee chat right now. It is being live streamed. And in about 10-15 minutes, Nico will take us through what events are happening this week and next week. So Careen, let's see what else is coming up. Trust, it's always a common question as well. So Craig is saying, what about trust? Do banks let these stand on their own 2 feet?
So I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question correctly, but yes, a trust is a legal entity. So the same as a company, we can definitely do home loans for trusts. At the end of the day, again, they look at the jockey. And I'm not sure if I'm understanding stand on their own 2 feet. If there's trust or a legal entity, the people behind the trust or the company or the legal entity, they have to sign surety. So there's no way of getting around that, because the banks will need to be able to go after somebody should there be a default. And I think the big factor that the banks look at is, doesn't matter if it's in a legal entity or company, the big thing they're considering is how are you going to afford to pay the monthly repayment. It's all about how you're going to service the debt. That's the big factor. So your financials in a legal entity or a trust have to support how the debt will be serviced. That is what the banks look at.
Absolutely. I think what Craig's saying there is when we're talking about companies, so right now, if I take a company, it can't stand on its own 2 feet. Therefore, myself as Andrew Walker will stand surety. But say 2-3 years down the line, that company wants to go buy another property. And can that company stand on its own 2 feet without Andrew having to sign surety? Because now that company's got great profits, all the accounts up to date, and the banks are happy to lend to the company with a company stands surety. I think that's what he means. So Craig's saying, so if the trust has a track record of 10 years, could the trust buy a property without Craig having to sign surety? Could that happen?
No. The trustees will still need to sign surety. The legal trustees, so that would be the accountant or the attorney that's normally part of a trust, would not be liable to sign surety. But the actual trustees, they would be required to sign surety. You cannot get around that.
Okay, no, perfect. Thank you very much. Now, let's say, Careen, let's go back to what you said at the beginning. Let's say there's a first-time buyer or first-time investor, and they only qualify for a 90% or an 80% loan to value. What was that new product that you have in place? Was it like a savings account, or how does that work?
Yeah, we have a product called Buyer's Trust. So it's either to use for a consumer as a savings vehicle to save for your deposit. Because often people want to save, but when you can access the money, it's hard not to touch it. Whereas if you put it into Buyer's Trust, you can't just access it at the drop of a hat. So it's to try and bring discipline. So that's the one thing, to use Buyer's Trust as a savings vehicle. The second aspect is if the client is purchasing, it's an alternative deposit solution. So where a client has got a deposit to put into the property that's being purchased, the general vehicles are either to use the attorney trust account, or you issue a bank guarantee, which there's normally a cost for, or real estate sometimes has their own trust accounts. Buyer's Trust allows the consumer to secure the deposit and for the guarantee to be issued when the investment is in their own personal name. It's not in someone else's name. That's the big benefit to the consumer. They also get a competitive interest rate, which is what they would get if they put the deposit with the bank directly or with an attorney. And thirdly, it's very secure from phishing risks. We all understand the phishing risks that have happened in the market and continue to happen, where information is intercepted and potentially deposits are lost. This is a very secure way in terms of what we've set up from a technology perspective to make sure that there's no phishing risk and that your deposit is safe. And there's no cost for issuing the guarantee.
Very interesting. Now, how can they find out more about that product?
So we do have a website. If they go to www.buyerstrust.co.za, or they can come through to ooba via Sappin and speak to myself, and I'll put them in contact with the investment managers that run our Buyers Trust product.
Awesome. So that's Sappin Connect, ladies and gents. I'll ask Nico or Nossi or the team just to post Sappin Connect if you do want to speak to the team at ooba, or go straight to buyerstrust.co.za. Now, Careen, there's on my workshop this last weekend, Flisp came up in terms of what is Flisp and how can Flisp help first-time buyers. Maybe break that down for us as well.
Okay. So the Flisp subsidy has been around for many years. That is a government-allocated subsidy for a particular segment of the market that's looking to purchase, and it is a property to live in that will then get government assistance in form of a subsidy. So that depends on the customer's earnings. So it's anybody earning between 3,000 and 22,000 at the moment. I have heard that they are looking to revise that up slightly. But in essence, the Flisp subsidy hasn't been used effectively in our South African market. So we have a whole lot of consumers that potentially have lost out on applying for a subsidy. So what we have done from an ooba perspective is we have signed an agreement with the National Housing Finance Corporation, who allocate the funds on behalf of the Department of Human Settlements. We apply for the Flisp subsidy once we have the bond approval, and we do that on behalf of the consumer. It's quite a tedious process for a consumer to go and apply for the subsidy on their own. We have been piloting our agreement with them at the NHFC for the last couple of months, and we have found huge success in terms of them having a 21-day turnaround time as opposed to 6 months. And what happens is that once we've got the home loan approved, we apply for the subsidy. We have access to their systems via our MOU that we can access their systems directly. We then get the approval, and on registration of the bond, the NHFC then transfers that subsidy into the customer's bond account. So if the client had a 100% bond of 500,000, then potentially that 500,000 Rand would be reduced on registration with the subsidy. The lower the earnings, the higher the subsidy. And at the moment it goes up to, I think it's 122,000 Rand. And then obviously if you're earning 22,000, which is the top end, then the subsidy is a little bit less. But in essence, we need to make sure that we're helping our consumers, and the government's allocated this funding. It just hasn't been distributed. And I think the NHFC has now seen that we could be an effective distribution channel for them for this particular product to get to the consumer.
Absolutely, and we'll start helping with that as well. But who's it for? Is it for, as far as I know, it's only if you're a South African resident, you earn between 3,000 to 22 or 23,000, and you've got to have a child involved. Is that right? Or is this,
so either a single parent, or you can be married. It is only for South African residents. You cannot have owned a property previously. So there are certain checks that the NHFC does, and we're also able to do that for a consumer before they put an offer in on property. We can actually do the pre-approval through Flisp, but you can't have owned a property before. You have to be a first-time home buyer. And
you take care of all the paperwork for the consumer, hey?
100%.
Ching, that's beautiful. And about 3 years ago, I bumped into a company called Housing Investment Partners. That's HIP, right?
Yes.
What do they do?
So HIP Housing, they're also a lender. They also do installment sale. So it's a slightly different purchase in terms of the way they structure the deal compared to traditional lenders. And they also have a certain criteria in terms of looking at a particular segment of the market.
And they are, it's under R1 million or something. Hey, it's a lower.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they do installment sale agreements. Careen, there are quite a few new people on the stream, which is awesome. Would you mind explaining what an installment sale agreement is?
So an installment sale, so Sentinel Homes also does installment sales. And as I mentioned, we are in discussions with potentially another lender. But basically, the consumer doesn't take transfer of the property immediately. It's done through the third party. And the agreement is then to actually on-sell that property further on. So if you do an installment sale, once you've actually reduced, because they'll look at you differently in terms of how they qualify you compared to the traditional banks. But the option is there for the consumer in 3 or 4 or 5 years' time to then actually switch out and go back to a traditional bank, depending on the equity in the property.
Absolutely.
But it does mean that you don't take transfer of the property immediately.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that you have the right attorney to help you draft it. I think it's called a Section 42 contract. And it's going to be a minimum of 2 payments or 12 months or more. And the typical length I just see with investors is plus minus 5 years. Could be longer, it could be shorter. There are some risks involved. So make sure you do get the right education around installment sale agreements. But it's a great way to get somebody onto the property ladder, which is great. Nico, from your side, are there any questions there?
Yeah, so just maybe a recap on, there was also someone just saying, let me just put up the question here for a sec. They're asking, what if this is for a company that is into development and only starting out with no financial backing? So as far as I understand, ooba don't assist real with commercial or development loans. Is that correct?
So we don't do it ourselves. We are able to refer you to partners and networks that we have. But generally, when someone's looking to get finance, to raise finance for a project, there has to be some form of contribution from the jockey. So if you're looking to do a development, the chances of finding 100% funding is going to be slim. They are looking for some track record, and then they are looking for the developer to make a contribution to the project.
Okay. Thank you. And then I see Kabi is also asking, in respect of companies, will the director always have to stand surety even after the company has traded and able to meet funding payments?
100%. The person behind the company, in terms of the directors, would have to sign surety.
Okay. Perfect.
And then a basic question over here was around the benefits of using a bond originator versus me going myself, Careen, and me going to Absa, myself going to Standard Bank. Just explain that process and the benefit of using ooba.
So the benefit to the consumer is to make sure that you can get the best option in terms of structuring your deal. So a lot of clients have the perception that they bank with their bank will give them the home loan, they'll give them a great deal. The chances are the bank will give you a great deal. But I always ask, how do you know it's the best deal? Unless you've been to the other banks. So,
exactly.
And the only way to do that, because there's a huge amount of paperwork involved with applying for a home loan, and you don't want to be trying to deal with all the different banks. So the best way is to go through ooba. We can then submit your application to all the banks, depending on the criteria and if it meets the bank's requirements. But that's how you know you get the best deal, is by using ooba, because we'll make sure that we can fight the interest rate. And yes, there are deals that the banks are doing that if you shift your banking, they'll give you an additional rate concession. But, for us, it's also about keeping you with your bank, but we can make sure you get the best deal. And that's not just about rate, because one bank might structure 100% lending at a slightly higher rate, whereas another bank might give you 90% with a lower rate. So it's all about how we structure the deal. But there's huge benefits from an origination perspective.
Exactly. And there's no cost to the consumer, and ooba take care of all the paperwork for you, and they guide you along the way, which is fantastic. So I think, Careen, what we'll do right now, Nico, just for 5 minutes, let's run the audience through what events are happening. And then any more questions for Careen? Careen, when we do bring you back on, let's have a conversation on interest rates and what's our prediction over there. Okay, so Nico, let's go through the events. Careen we'll bring you back on in 5 minutes' time. Okay.
No problem.
Fantastic. Thank you. So, ladies and gents, that's Careen from Uber. If you have any questions, we are going to bring it back on. Please put it in the comments box. Remember to give us some love on Facebook, like us, give us some hearts, tag in a friend, a business partner, anyone that's interested in the property space. This is a busy week. 4 events this week and next week. We'll be in Durban end of next week, which is super exciting. But very quickly, Nico, take us through what events are happening.
Great. So Wednesday, the 2nd of March, from about 6:30 to 10, we have a PE Sapin event that's open to the public where Jade will be hosting. So we're very excited about that one. With all the public events coming back, I think people really want to get away from the screen. So that's exciting. Then we have Friday, the 4th of March, is the live stream event with APSA. Hey, Andrew, we'll be joining you again.
So I'll be in Durban there, which is great. That's the 4th of March, right? Where we talk about the macroeconomic impacts of the budget speech, the tax tables, the VAT, transfer duty. So all investors have to attend that. So we will get that event side. It's Jeff Lee, who heads up the ABSA Bank in the home loans. So make sure you do attend it. It'll be about 45 minutes. And then Saturday, what's happening Saturday, Nico?
Right, so Saturday we have Star Trading with Lewis Crompton. From 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock is definitely something I would advise anyone to consider. From a personal perspective, that is something that really works. And then also, once again, from Monday, the 7th of March, we have the next coffee chat, and that is between 1 and 2. And then from 6 to 7 that evening, we have the Precision Realty Brokerage web event where we go through current and active deals within the brokerage. And then we go to Tuesday, the 8th of March, which is the mastermind session between 6 and 7. And then on Thursday, the 10th of March, between 1 and 2, we have the live stream event with Robin Booth and Airbnb. And then on Friday, the 11th of March, between 6:30 and 10 again, we have the Durban networking event, which we are looking forward to, followed by Saturday from 9 to 6. We have the Durban one-day workshop again, which is going to be exciting.
So I think, Nick, on that point, on the 11th of March, so I'm flying down Friday morning, and I'm going to be meeting some of our partners like Tal Africa, Uber, TAF, and Friday afternoon between 4 and 6, just casual networking. Right, there's no cost for it. You can rock up. If you want to meet myself, Mark Berman, a developer, will be there, and we're just going to rock up and we're just going to chill for about between 4 and 6 o'clock. And then if you're an investor in Durban and you want to learn how to invest in property or take your portfolio to the next level, Saturday 8:30 until 6 o'clock all day Saturday. We're just talking about property. We'll talk about Airbnb developments, running numbers, scenario planning, all of that on Saturday. So it's going to be a busy 2 weeks.
No, we network hard, but we educate hard as well, right? And we're just doing it in Durban this time.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. Nice one. So, Nico, what we should do is let's bring Careen back and let's talk about interest rates. Careen, you are back. Hello.
Hi. So, interest rates. So, yes. We've obviously seen a boom in the property market over the last 2 years. The interest rates were the lowest they've been for more than 50 years. And a lot of tenants were looking to purchase property as opposed to renting. So we definitely saw that property boom hugely when we came out of the hard lockdown in 2020. So at the moment, we are in a cycle where we are seeing interest rates rising. I think the big plus factor for us, and yes, it shifted twice recently. So we went from 7% to 7.25 in November last year, and we've just had another rate hike, which has taken the prime rate to 7.5%. We are expecting, and again, this is a crystal ball. Nobody knows for sure, but we are expecting, certainly from Uber's perspective, as well as talking to the banks, that interest rates will continue in the upward cycle, that they should still increase at least twice more this year. But what it does mean for us, if we look back to where we were in 2019, the interest rates were sitting at 10%. So even if we have another 3 interest rate increases in terms of 0.25 basis points increase 3 times before the end of 2022, we will still be sitting at a much lower prime rate than what we saw 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So it's still positive. And we still think that properties is really right now is a good time to purchase property still. 10% versus 8% potentially by the end of the year still great news. Impacts customers' affordability slightly, but it's 150 Rand on R1,000,000. That's the difference in the slight change of the interest rate on every 0.25.
Absolutely. And I think it's advisable that if people are buying property right now, which they are, that they run their numbers based on prime, of course, but maybe run your numbers on 9% or 10% just to see if interest rates do get to that level. How would that impact your cash flow? Would you agree, Careen?
100%. So all the banks do that in terms of their affordability checks. They do stress tests, and they're all looking at customers' affordability already at 2% greater than what the current interest rates are. So the banks are already doing that.
I mean, if the banks are doing it, a property investor should be doing it. I mean, you won't want to go into a property opportunity blindfolded. So make sure you rather prepare for it.
100%.
Absolutely. Simon McKinon is asking for Careen's email address. If you can just send Simon Sapin Connect details, and you can connect with yourself through Sapin Connect, Simon. So Nico, just find Simon's comment there and just reply to it. And Careen, I think we're at the end of the coffee chat. What would you like to leave our audience today?
So I think, for us, what we are seeing is test the affordability. So if you are in the market to purchase a property, let's start with your personal affordability. Let's start either with one of our products, which is the online tools, or get in touch with us and we can take you through the actual process and look at the affordability aspect before you go and look to put in an offer to purchase. We have seen, in terms of our Uber bond indicator stats over the last couple of months, that customers that are looking to purchase, that have used the tool, about 40% of our clients have been credit impaired. So let us help you go through that process before you go and put in the offer. Then you know that what you're looking at, and in terms of your purchase price, that price point, what you can and can't afford. So I encourage clients to use our pre-approvals and our qualified buyer certificates.
Absolutely. And there is a link. Just to say again, and you mentioned earlier, Careen, there is a link, Nico, I'd like to put down our WhatsApp channels. If we can just put that unique link back into the comment section. So if you do want to get pre-approved, if you're not sure if you can get a bond, and even if you can't because of your credit profile, Uber will help you fix that. So just use the link, click on it, and make sure that you are ready for your next property purchase. So from our side, Careen, I am good. Nico, any more questions for Careen from your side?
No questions. I can just testify based on the systems and the process has been working even through the brokerage perspective. I think a lot of the times we get answers before we even ask them. And that makes life really much easier, to just be aware, that someone is looking after your transaction. They're looking at your best interest with various banks and they come back with solutions and options. And that's what we want as investors, right? That's the best way to operate.
Absolutely. Awesome, Careen. Thank you so much for your time. I'll stay on the line for 2 minutes with Nico, and we'll see you. And I'll see your team at the next public event on the 16th of March. I'll see Justin and the team there. They'll be live. Uber will be live at that event, which is great. And Careen, have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Careen.
Take care.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Awesome. That's Careen from Uber Home Loans. We've been working with them since last year, and they seriously, Nico, you know this because you work at the brokerage. They do a fantastic job. They're fast, they're quick. Most applications, if not 100% so far, we've got those bonds through, and mainly at 100%, which is great. So thank you, Careen. Ladies and gents, you can see there are a lot of events happening this week and next week. The great thing is, it's not just Joburg. We're in the Eastern Cape on Wednesday night, and we'll be in Durban next weekend, Friday and Saturday. So check out sapropertynetwork.com for more information and details of the events and the cost of the events and the live streams. It's super exciting stuff. Nico, anything from your side?
No, I think, make sure that you go and register. And also, like you've always say, if you know someone else who's interested in these type of events and property investment and overall, make sure that you tag them into these chats and that you get them on board, and we'll definitely be able to assist and add value to them because we still learn every day and get value every day. So you might as well join the ride.
Awesome. I agree, Nico. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gents, again, if we don't see you this week at one of the events, we'll see you back on Monday for the next coffee session. Thanks, Nico.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.